Don't be blue, green is here, and it's time for a build with the new Fractal Pop Air cases. We're going to be building in the lime green because I've got a lime green Taichi motherboard from ASRock and Razer. An i7-12900K, 32 gigabytes of Kingston Fury Beast DDR5 memory, our plucky little 6950 XT, also courtesy ASRock. We've got a Cooler Master cooler for the CPU and a Cooler Master. This is, let's see, the MWE Gold 850 V2 fully modular power supply. Let's get building. The premium motherboards always come in the big boxes. It's big box energy. There's tons of accessories that we're going to need in the accessory box. Extra USB 2 headers right in the box? Yes. Wireless connections, Velcro? Yes. All the things, but also, this is our GPU retention bracket. It's going to be awesome. We also have a supplemental VRM fan, which is great for the 12900K and the 12900KS. There's one built into the motherboard. You can add a second one. Now, it's important to understand that ASRock has both the regular Taichi version and the Razer edition, and they change up a little bit in terms of the peripherals that are built into the motherboard. For one, the big one is that you're buying into the Razer RGB Chroma. There are people out there that have gone crazy on the RGB stuff, and they want Chroma from Razer. Okay, sounds good. For storage, we're going to be rocking the Sabrent 4TB M.2 NVMe PCI Express Gen 4 because it's 4 terabytes. Why not? The I/O shield is built in on this motherboard, so you don't really have to worry about that. Personally, a motherboard that has a built-in I/O shield I find very appealing. So unpacking your motherboard once you've peeled it, first thing, install the processor. Now, because we're going to be using a Cooler Master all-in-one, it pays to go ahead and mount the CPU mounting thing for the cooler on the motherboard because it's easier when it's not mounted in the case. If you forget this step, it's not a big deal. There's plenty of accessibility in the back of our Pop Air case, so don't worry about it. CPU mounting solution for the cooler has been installed. We get this nice heat-absorbing backplate on the back. Just so exciting. So now I think it is the case that we need. The case. Now, I've reviewed these cases separately. It's a new offering from Fractal. It is a lower cost offering from Fractal. There are some sacrifices, but it's a pretty good case for what it is. Now, for this case and this motherboard, the standoffs for the motherboard come pre-installed everywhere that they need to be. There's not any that you have to remove. And the case comes with all of the screws that you need to mount the motherboard into this case. Next, I think is going to be easiest, the power supply to mount. So you take the back off, there's a bundle of cables. This is the front panel connections, power, SATA, your button. If you've never built a computer before, getting this hooked up is probably the hardest part. It's not really hard, it's just tedious. But the power supply I put in fan side down. That means it's going to pull air in from the bottom and exhaust it out the back. That's what I want. Generally on most motherboards, the front panel audio plugs in this bottom corner, so I've routed the cable appropriately, but there wasn't really a lot of room between the power supply and the case to do that. It might be nice if that cutout were a little bigger, but it works. Now, as we think about our build, there's going to be a big old GPU there and a cooler in the front. It's not time to put the GPU in yet, but got all these power supply cables we got to deal with. Just, you know, there's all kinds of stuff going on here, so let's go ahead and fish that through. Now, for my build, I've got a 240 millimeter radiator, but really I would probably recommend a 280 millimeter radiator for either the i7 or the i9. But the 240 millimeter radiator can be mounted in the top of the case, especially with the offset mounting. I was kind of curious about that. So I would probably mount that 280 millimeter cooler in the front and deal with it that way, and not mount and probably also I would mount the 240 millimeter cooler in the front as well, if I weren't curious about how it works on the top. With the way these fans are pointed, I'm also going to be pulling air in from the top, which is a little unusual. So this is a pretty cool accessory. Each of these Fractal cases comes with 4 of these so that you can do offset mounting for a top 240 millimeter radiator. Really, that's just Fractal encouraging you to put fans in the top and not a radiator. But they didn't want to miss out in case somebody has, you know, like a GPU AIO plus a CPU AIO, which is surprisingly common, especially with this upcoming generation. Does he know things? With the 4000 series or RDNA 3. You know, the whole AIO for a GPU, that's one way to deal with the heat. So this offset thing basically shoves the radiator a little closer to the outside of the case, but without compromising the structural integrity of the top of the case, because the physical mechanical strength of the case depends a lot on where the holes are stamped in the metal in the top. So if they move the vent too close to the edge of the case, it's really going to weaken it. So this is a clever way to deal with that. And that's what we're working with in terms of an offset mount. And it was necessary for this motherboard because the I/O shroud placement is such that it would hit the corner of the radiator even if the radiator was all the way to the far front. So yeah, it's cool. Offset mount. Woo! With the cables reasonably routed, all we need to do now is put a little bit of thermal paste on our cold plate for our CPU cooler, and basically we're good to go. Dang, that's a lot of RGB. So with the Intel system, you can test it without an iGPU as long as your motherboard has some kind of video out. This motherboard's got Thunderbolt as well as HDMI, so we can hook this up and test it and make sure it sees the memory and everything else before we install this chunker. Now I almost forgot, ASRock has this, which is a really great little thing. On just about every case this will be compatible with, but this is designed to mount on the side mounting screws for the motherboard on this side. And so this will mount this way and be held in place mechanically in the case. But it will support the end of the GPU so it doesn't sag down here on this end. It's pretty clever. I'm also adding my extra USB 2.0, my 2 extra USB 2 ports, which is just going to conveniently go at the bottom. Dang, what a build! It's so green! Even the power button's RGB. Alright, so the only thing left to do with this build is to basically do a burn-in check, stability test, and benchmarking. So let's get it off to the lab. So for lab testing, it's pretty easy. Basically load up some games and see if it performs about where it should for other systems that have a 6950 XT and a 12900KS or a 12900K. And it does. So not much left to do here except tweak it for overclocking, tune it a little bit, and maybe I can squeeze a little bit more out of the memory. If you got 4 sticks of DDR5, that can be a little trickier to get working at maximum performance. So those things are maybe videos for another day. This is just a build video, quickly putting it together. Now, Razer and RGB, if that tickles your fancy, you've got Razer Control at razer.com/synapse. You download that, you use that software, it's good to go for this motherboard. As for the BIOS features and other stuff, this is very, very similar to the existing ASRock Taichi. So I would suggest that you check out my previous ASRock Taichi motherboard because it's got some unique features like a hardware assist ransomware protector. Yeah, there's a USB port and a SATA port that go through a special controller that need a special driver. It's a Windows thing. ASRock's trying new things. Maybe it'll be an interesting feature, maybe not. I don't know. It's pretty interesting. But check out the Taichi review. And if you like this build, definitely come comment in the forum. Let me know what other kinds of builds you want to see. It was definitely very, very green. Oh, and I'm probably going to give away the motherboard and case to a member of the forum, but I haven't figured out exactly what the circumstances of that are going to be. It's probably just going to be the motherboard and case. If I throw in a processor and other stuff, it's going to be something lower tier than an i9. But we'll see. I haven't worked out the details of that. You got to stay tuned, and we'll see. All right, I'm Wondaless Level 1. I'm signing out, and you can find me in the Level 1 forums. Oh, and big thanks to Fractal and ASRock for sending those over so that I could take a look at them. Giveaways inbound. All right, I'll see you.